right, we are going to look at decimal models. And the easiest way to look at decimal models is to write them as a fraction first. So let me go to the top of my models and we'll just kind of walk through these different ones. Okay, so let's look here. Now I would write it as a fraction first. So here you notice there are 10 out of 10 pieces shaded, and we also know this as a whole. Here there are 2 pieces shaded, that's my numerator. Out of 10, if you counted all those pieces, there would be 10. So this is 1 and 2/10. Now a lot of people like to say that this is 12 because they see 12 shaded out of 20. But remember, these 2 pieces are not pushed together, they're not one long piece. So we're not going to say this is 12/20ths. We would say that this is 10/10, and then we have 2/10, and if I were to add those together, that would get me 12/10, which is more than a whole. So we have 1 and 2/10 here. So I'm going to take the 1 and 2/10 now, and I'm going to put it in a house to help me out. So remember, we have our units, which are our wholes, our tenths, and our hundredths. So I see 1 whole, so that's going to go in the units. We're messing with tenths. These aren't cut into 100 pieces, so I don't have to worry about this. And I see that there are 2 out of 10, so this is 2/10, and let me add my decimal. So I have 1 and 2/10. So let's look at the next piece. The next piece is just this right here. Let's write it as a fraction. We're going to count how many shaded. That's going to be my numerator. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shaded out of 9, 10. Remember, this is not 8 halves. It's not 8 shaded out of 2. Got to write how many pieces are all together, which is 10. So it's 8/10. So let me put this in a house. Units, tenths, hundredths, 8/10. I'm in my tenths column. It's not a whole. This whole thing's not shaded, so that's not going to work. It's in the tenths, and there are 8 of them. It's not 100th. This isn't cut into 100 little pieces. So it is 0 and 8/10, or if we write it just as a fraction, 8/10. Okay, these are the models we're used to seeing with our 10 blocks and our hundredths blocks. Now we see things like this. And this is just looks like a regular fraction, a rectangle that's been divided into pieces. So there are 2 shaded, and there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 total. So this can also be a decimal. So let's put it into our decimal house. I have no holes because the whole thing's not shaded. I have 2 out of 10, so this is 2/10, and there's no hundredths. So this would be 0 and 2/10. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's write it as a fraction. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe shaded out of 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 6 out of 10 pieces, or 6/10. If I were to write it as a fraction, there are 0 holes and 6/10. So as you can see, everything we've done so far has been tenths. Let's look at the next one. Now we see this a lot. These are called our 10th wheels and our 100th wheels, okay? So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4 shaded out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 4/10. So there's no holes, and there's a 4 in my tenths. And I don't need anything in the hundredths place because it's not cut into 100 pieces. So this would be 0 and 4/10, or we could just say 4/10. Guys, if you use those fractions, it will help you so much. Okay, let's look at the next one. I'm going to write my house, units, tenths, hundredths. Do you see any holes? Yes, I see 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 holes. And then I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see a piece of 1 shaded. 4 out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 3 and 4 tenths. I do have a whole in this one. So if I'm writing it in my fraction, remember your units is your wholes. Do you see wholes? Yes, I see 3. And these are tenths, so I'm gonna do 4 tenths. Okay, let's do the last one over here. The last one, do you see a whole? Yes, there is no hole. And I have 3 shaded out of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 3 tenths. So everything on this top row was tenths. So let's look at the next row. How has this changed? Looking at the next row, I'm gonna scroll down for you. Okay, looking on this row, how have things changed in this first one? Yeah, you see hundredths now. So let's do units, tenths, hundredths. Remember that TH shows you it's a decimal. Okay, let's write our fraction first because that's the easiest way to do it. I see 1 whole shaded in. Now, don't set and count square by square, guys. You see that this is 10, 20, 30, 40, and then now count by hundredths, 41, 42, 43, 44. So there's 44 shaded, and you know that this is a 100 grid. So it's 1 and 44 hundredths. So we have 1 whole, we had 4 longs, and then we had 4 hundredths. So it would be 1 and 44 hundredths. So now instead of tenths, they've changed these to hundredths, and you can see that there's many more little pieces chopped up in our model. Let's go to this model. This model is called place value chips, and we may have seen this when we were working with whole numbers. So let's look here now. Do you see any holes? No, if there were holes, they would have looked like this and it said 1.0 or just 1. So there are no holes. But I do see tenths, and I see 2 tenths. You said this is 1 tenth and 1 tenth. Well, if I have 1 tenth and 1 tenth, that gives me 2 tenths. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. So this would be 25 hundredths, same as a quarter. All right, let's look at the next one. Here's another place value wheel, but I want to zoom in for a minute and show you something. We were using these. How is this different from this? Yeah, do you see all these other little bitty pieces popped in here? Guys, that's hundredths. So this place value wheel has hundredths. So the easiest way to count it, let me zoom back out so we can get our table here, is to count the big pieces. The big pieces are going to be tenths. So you can tell there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tenths. And then on this guy, that whole thing's not shaded in. It's 1 shy from being shaded in. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this would be 9 hundredths. So that fraction wheel says 89 hundredths. If I might to write it as a fraction, it would look like this, 89 hundredths. So there are our fraction wheels, but it has the hundredths on it. You can also see decimal models as money. So remember, the penny is 100th. It is just one little bitty square shaded on our 100 grid. If I had a nickel, that would be 5 hundredths, and it would be 5 of the little things shaded, because I could also make a nickel, I could also have the equivalency of a nickel with 5 pennies. And then you have a dime, which is a tenth, and it's 1 whole long shaded. And then we also have a 25 hundredths, which would be the same as a quarter. Now I want you to notice there are 4 quarters here, because if I shaded in 25 4 times, or if I had 4 quarters, that'd be 25, 50, 75, 100. So that would also be a whole. So if I had 4 quarters, that would be 100 out of 100, which would be our unit, which is 1 whole, or we might represent it in money as a dollar bill. So you might also see decimal models as money. Okay, there's 2 more here. And I want you to try them on your own. So try this one on your own and try this one on your own. Okay, pause the video if you need to and then come back and check for the answers. Notice on this one there is no hole. And let's write it as our fraction. I see 2/10 and then I see 8/100. So as a fraction, I would say there's 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 out of 100 is shaded in. So I would say that's 28/100. And right here is my decimal to show 28/100. Okay, let me do the last one. Look and see, did you write a hole? You should have. There's one hole here. If I wrote it as a fraction, it would be 10/10. And then I see 1 out of 10 here. So I'm gonna put that in the tenths. I do not have any hundreds. So it's 1 and 1/10. If I wrote it as a fraction, 1 and 1/10. And check them and make sure they jive. Guys, if you use the fractions, it will make it so much easier, and use your house. If you use those two things, you should be successful and have no problem making models with decimals.